Today I am going to make some Irish cottage incense burner homes. There's a village nearby me called Dunmore East, which has these really beautiful thatched cottages. So that's the inspiration for these. I'm going to make something small that you can just lift off, put an incense cone inside. The incense cone I'm going to use will be turf scented, just for full authenticity. They haven't arrived yet, but I ordered them yesterday, so they'll be here soon. But we can start work on the cottage. So let's go. So I sell these templates on Etsy. The first step is just to cut them out, which is really simple. When you're printing, just print them to 100%, not fit on page or anything like that. Although it'll still fit, but it just will be a different size. That was quick. So next I'm going to wedge up some clay. These are quite small, it won't take that much. And then I'm going to roll them out to 5mm thickness. So when rolling out the clay, as I said, 5mm thickness slabs. You can use a gauge, like little sticks just to guide you if they're 5mm thick. Play in the middle, roll it out. That's what I used to do, but I picked up this pastry roller and I love it. It's got loads of little hoops that are different thicknesses, so this one is 5mm. If you're thinking, why didn't I use a needle tool for that? I have no answer. I don't know. I've rolled out probably enough clay to make two, so don't worry about doing loads. Maybe three. I'm going to put these personally outside. It's a little bit sunny, it's a little bit breezy, a very light wind, just to help them firm up a little bit so that we can build with them. And then I'm going to take lunch and see how they are after an hour or so. It's been almost exactly 1 hour. They are more firm than they were. They could be firmer, but this is fine. Cool, so now we cut out all the component parts. Each piece has the number of times you need that piece. So this is the base, I only need one of those. So I have all the pieces cut and laid out in front of me. Once I cut a piece, I always set it beside the cutout of itself, because there are a lot of similar looking pieces. The base, the walls, the floor, sorry, the base, the walls and the roof pieces are all similar but not the same, so just keep them separate. So what I'm going to do next is start assembling. So I have my needle tool already. I'm going to get my craft knife and a little bit of a slip and a brush. I have to admit, this is my second attempt. I did the first one and it turned out fine, but I just think it's better to work with firmer clay. I rushed that. So this is from a firmer slab. Still got a bit of give, but the last one was just wet. So I have all my pieces cut, same as before. So I'm going to start with the wall pieces and the two sides. So that is A and C. And I want to bevel the joining edges. So obviously these are going to come together just to form the frame of a house. And I want all four pieces to join nicely. So 45-degree cut with your knife. Just go gently, go slowly. Just on two sides. It's the two short ends of the walls. Cool. Next we slip and score. So just over where the edges that you've cut, a quick score on every edge. And then a little slip. And then just push the pieces together. So, squeeze together the joins. Nice little bit of pressure. And add on the wall piece. And then the final sides. And then once they're more or less joined, I then pinch from the outside just to help a little bit more. And then blend with your finger. My inside isn't super messy, but if you have a lot of slip, if you have drips, extra clay on the inside, going over with a wooden knife and just very gently without very much pressure, pulling it up the seam, just neatens things up a little. So you've got your frame, set that to the side. Now you want the two roof pieces, which is B, and the two gable pieces, which is D. Beware with the gable pieces, it's not one of those triangles where all three sides are the same length. The bottom is longer, or I think it's longer. It's a different length. So if you're not sure, just line up your bit of paper again. I like to put a notch in the bottom piece when I'm cutting so that I don't lose track. So the two roof pieces, the two gables, I lie them out like this, these edges are the bottom edges. And we're going to bevel just one edge of each roof piece, which will become the peak of the roof, the pinnacle. And that's it. Next we will score that bit we just cut on the two roof pieces. And then I'm scoring on the long side of the roof piece at the edge, not on the side. That is where the gable is going to go. And then score the two sides of the gables, but not the bottom. Slip anywhere that you've scored. And then first, we're just putting the gables onto one of the roof pieces. Again, make sure your right side is facing out. Push it in firmly without deforming anything. And then with the roof piece, I'm going to twist this around so you can see. See how it just closes up really simply. Again, just a bit of pressure on the joins to make sure everything's really, really connected. Oh, not that much pressure. Pinch the top. Little blend. I just use my thumb. You don't need to get this bit particularly neat, especially the roof, because I'm going to be adding texture. So that's the roof done. Next we'll grab the frame again. We want to bevel two sides, just the two long pieces on the top. Just 45-degree angle again, and this is just where the roof is going to sit onto the frame. Score where you've cut. A little bit of slip. And then the roof piece should fit over the top of the frame of the cottage. I'm trying to do it so I can see and so you can see. Just make sure it's in on all four sides. The roof should have a bit of overhang on all edges. Once you're happy, put a few fingers on the inside, a thumb on the outside, and just put a bit of pressure so that the bit that you've beveled and slipped and scored, or scored and slipped, makes contact with the roof so that it's held on. And do the same with the other end. That is the frame essentially done. The main build of the cottage. Now we want to put the chimney on. So the chimney piece is easier with wet clay, because if I bend this, it will just break. And if you're working with drier clay like I am, I'm going to cut this into 4 equal sections. And I want to join these together to make a square. I'll join them like that, so I'm going to need to bevel the edges just a touch. I'm not going to score these because they're so tiny. A little slip. There we go, we've just made a tiny chimney. I'm just blending the seams, blending the edges. I want it to be a little bit neat. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's good. I want this to be in the middle, so I'm placing the chimney where I want it. And I'm just going to put the needle tool in the middle, just to mark where to cut. And now I want to cut out a little bit where the chimney will sit. Not very deep. Just measure. Okay, cool. And obviously we need there to be a hole in the roof. Open it up whichever way you need to, but if you have a tool to make a hole, fantastic, use that. Done. And then we need to add the chimney, so a little bit of scoring, a little slip, and the chimney should just fit right into the notch that you've cut out. I'm just bracing the inside while I push in the outside. You want to make sure there are no gaps around the edges. The smoke, if it doesn't come out the middle of the chimney, will be very noticeable. And then I like to just put the tool to make holes in via the top of the chimney, just to make sure the hole fully lines up. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it just looks a little neater now. That's all the building done. So now it's just decoration. And because this, for me, is based off the cottages in Dunmore East, they are thatched roof cottages. So I want to do a thatch effect on the top. You could mark in tiles if you want. So for thatch, this tool works really well. You just scrape down quite aggressively. You also don't want to do neat lines, so crisscross a little as well. You could use a texture roller if you have one of those, but the clay would need to be quite soft for the texture to come out. I know this feels so aggressive, but I think the effect is worth it. Okay. We're not done with the chimney, but before we do more, we want to now carve in any windows and doors that we want. For this, use a needle tool, a pen, a pencil, or a ball stylus, which is what I'm going to use. There we go. And then the windows. 2 small ones. I like to do little curtains in the windows. Because the cottages nearby have curtains in the windows. And then a dry paintbrush is helpful, just for where you've carve the windows and doors. It just helps take out some of the excess clay. This is a very soft brush. One with slightly firmer bristles is a little bit better. One last step is we need oxygen entry, just to let some air come in for the burning incense cone. So I'm just going to do 3 very small holes at the back. So one in the middle. There we go. So that's 3 cut. And then these will sit on a base which is slightly larger than the footprint of the cottage. And you'll just lift it off to put the incense cone in, light it, set it in. The smoke has nowhere to go except for out the chimney. So we're almost done. I'm using water and a paintbrush just on the thatched roof. This will just soften the more harsh cuts. You don't want to overblend and take away the detail that you've put in, but it just smooths it a little. That is it assembled. Next is letting it go bone dry, and I would then often go over very gently with a slightly damp sponge just to neaten any burr of clay on the outside. You can go over the windows and doors again with a tool, make sure they're obviously going to stand out, and yeah, see you when these are bisqued. My cottage is through the bisque fire, all in one piece, and it looks great. So the next step is to glaze. I could do the whole thing one colour. I think that would be great, but what I'm going to do is I want the thatch to be a yellow golden colour, so I've got this Saturation Gold by Amico. I want the door to be red, so I have Glut Hellrot, Terra colour. And then I want a tiny bit of yellow in the window between the curtains. So I've got Yellow Gloss by Mako. This one turns out really subtly, or fires really subtly on this clay when it's next to the colour of the clay body. Once I paint on the few details, I'm going to dip the whole thing in transparent, and that should be lovely. And then I'm going to do the base in transparent as well. Brush on glazes are done. That is 2 coats of the Saturation Gold on the thatch, 2 of the Glut Hellrot red on the door, and just 1 of the yellow in the window. That's just a highlight. The yellow still looks a tiny bit tacky, so I'm just going to let that dry while I mix the transparent glaze. This has had a good bit of glaze applied already, so it's drying slower than usual. I'm just going to make myself busy and then come back to it in a little bit. It's been like 5 minutes. I wiped things down for like 30 seconds and then doom scrolled on my phone for the rest. So I was productive. So I'm just going to gently go over my fingerprint marks where I held the piece, just to smooth that out a touch. Sponge off the excess. . So my cottage is out of the kiln. I think the colours worked really well. It turned out exactly how I hoped. Very neat little thing, perfect size. Here's the base, and I have a little incense cone already smouldering. This is exactly what I had in mind. I love the way the smoke goes straight out the chimney. It just looks incredible. Brilliant. If you made one, I hope you're pleased. Please let me see how yours turned out. If you can, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'm just starting out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.